Page 1. Transport of gases. The transport of O2 and CO2 by the blood is often referred to as
The digestive system is a complex series of organs and processes that work together to break down food and absorb nutrients into the body. It includes various organs, such as the mouth, salivary gland, The large intestine is a wider tube that absorbs water and electrolytes from undigested food and forms it into feces, which are eliminated through the rectum and anus. The small intestine is a long, narrow tube that receives the chyme from the stomach and completes the digestion of food. The walls of the small intestine are lined with tiny fingers. The pancreas is a glandular organ located in the abdomen. It plays a crucial role in the digestive and endocrine systems. As an exocrine gland, it secretes digestive enzymes into the small intestine to aid in the breakdown of food. Microscopically, the pancreas reveals acinar cells forming clusters, islets of Langerhans with endocrine cells, and traversing blood vessels. The gastrin is a hormone that plays an important role in the regulation of the digestive system. It is produced by G cells, which are located in the antrum of the stomach, as well as in the duodenum and pancreas. Gastrin is released into the bloodstream in response to certain stimuli, such as the presence of food in the stomach. Stimulus: the release of gastrin is stimulated by secretion. The action of gastrin is primarily to increase the production. Somatostatin is a hormone produced by the delta cell. Secretin is a hormone that is produced, and cholecystokinin is a hormone produced and secreted by. Gastric inhibitory peptide is a hormone that is produced and secreted by the K cells in the duodenum and jejunum of the small intestine. It plays an important role in the regulation of the digestive system. Stimulus: the secretion of secretion. Action: the main action of in addition to its effects on glucose metabolism, gastric inhibitory peptide also has other physiological effects, such chewing, also known as mastication, is the process by which food is broken down into smaller particles in the mouth in preparation for swallowing and digestion. The following is a detailed description of food enters the mouth. Food is introduced into the oral cavity through the mouth. The lips, cheeks, and tongue help to manipulate the food and keep it within the mouth. Saliva production. As soon as food enters the mouth, the salivary glands start producing saliva. Saliva contains enzymes such as swallowing. Once the food has been sufficiently broken down and mixed with saliva, it is ready to be swallowed. The tongue moves the food to the back of the mouth and triggers the swallowing reflex. The epiglottis, a flap of tissue at the base of the tongue, closes off the trachea to prevent food from entering the lungs. Peristalsis is the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of smooth muscle in the esophagus that propels food from the mouth to the stomach. Carbohydrate digestion starts in the mouth. When you eat carbohydrates such as bread, pasta, and rice, the salivary glands in your mouth produce saliva that contains an enzyme called amylase. Amylase breaks down carbohydrates into smaller molecules called oligosaccharides and disaccharides. The longer you chew your food, the more amylase is produced, and the more carbohydrates are broken down. Stomach. Once the carbohydrates have been broken down in the mouth, they enter the stomach. Small intestine. The small intestine is the primary site for carbohydrate digestion and absorption. As the chyme from the stomach enters the small intestine, the pancreas. Once the carbohydrates are broken down into smaller units, they are absorbed into the blood's mouth. The digestion of lipids begins in the mouth with the mechanical action of chewing, which breaks down large lipid molecules into smaller particles. The tongue and cheeks mix the lipids with saliva, which contains lingual lipase, an enzyme that begins the chemical breakdown of fats. However, the amount of fat digested in the mouth is minimal, and most of the lipid digestion takes place in the small intestine. Stomach. Once the food enters small intestine, pancreatic lip. The small intestine is the primary site. Mouth. Carbohydrate digestion starts in the mouth. When you eat carbohydrates such as bread, pasta, and rice, the salivary glands in your mouth produce saliva that contains an enzyme called amylase. Amylase breaks down carbohydrates into smaller molecules called oligosaccharides and disaccharides.
तस्र कल्लेवं प्रवृत्तस्य शुक्रशोणितस्याभिपच्यमानस्य
Melanin is a protein pigment that gives color to skin and hair. It is produced by the melanocyte. Inside the melanocyte are spherical organelles, called melanosomes. The melanosomes produce melanin and carry the melanin to keratinocyte, in the epidermis. It produces more and larger melanosomes that contain melanin, a pigment that provides darker, Anastomoses in human skin refer to the interconnected network of blood vessels that allow blood to flow between arteries and veins without passing through capillaries. These arteriovenous and melanin, a pigment produced by specialized cells called melanocyte in the skin, helps to protect against the harmful effects of UV radiation. It absorbs and scatters UV radiation before it can penetrate deep into the skin, where it can cause damage. Sensation refers to our ability to detect and sense the internal and external Merkel cells, along with associated nerve endings known as Merkel nerve and sensation Krauss corpuscles, found in the skin. Sensation refers to Arrowfini nerve endings are crucial for detecting warm temperature. Located in the skin, they are thermoreceptor. Sensation refers to exocrine glands, physical barrier, the outermost layer of the skin, the epiderm. Chemical barrier, the skin produces various antimicrobial peptides. The skin participates in inflammation by releasing inflammatory mediators upon injury or exposure to pathogens. This triggers increased blood flow, vasodilation, and immune cell infiltration at the affected site. Inflammation aids in clearing infections. The skin plays an important sweat glands. The skin contains sweat glands that produce sweat, which is mostly composed of water and salt. As the sweat evaporates from the skin's surface, it absorbs heat, which helps to cool the body down. Growth hormone releasing hormone, thyrotropin releasing hormone, TR, gonadotropin releasing hormone, G, corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH. CRH is a hormone that is secreted by the hypothalamus and pineal gland. The pineal gland secretion, melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone primarily produced by the pineal gland in the brain. It plays a crucial role in regulating the sleep-wake cycle, also known as the circadian rhythm. Melatonin levels increase in the evening, promote pituitary gland, the posterior pituitary lobe, the posterior pituitary lobe. The thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped endocrine gland located in the neck, just below the Adam's apple. It produces and secretes two hormones, thyroxine, T4, and triiodothyronine, T3. Thyroid gland is the only endocrine gland iodide trapping. Iodide ions are synthesis of thyroglobulin, oxidation of iodide, iodination of tyrosine, coupling of T1 and T2. Two T2 molecules combine to make T4 in the final phase, penocytosis and digestion of secretion of thyroid hormone, transport in the blood. Over 99% of adrenal glands, the pancreas. The pancreas is a glandular organ The ovary is a multifunctional endocrine gland in the female reproductive system. Its primary function is secretion. Progesterone is primarily secretion. Estrogen is primarily secreted. Structure, secretion. Testosterone is produced. Role: testosterone has development and maintenance of male physical characteristics. Testosterone is responsible for the development and maintenance of male physical characteristics. The thymus gland has a The thymus gland plays a vital role in the development and maturation of T-limb. One of the key endocrine functions of the kidney is the production and secretion of the hormone erythropoietin. Erythropoietin is a hormone produced by the kidneys in response. Erythropoietin is also used therapeutically to treat anemia. Renin is an enzyme secreted by the juxtaglomerular cell. Angiotensin I is then converted into angiotensin II by the action of angiotensin.
मांसाश्रिक कफमेदः
The process of spermatogenesis begins with division of the germ cells, also known as spermatogonia. Primary spermatocyte is the first division of spermatogonia. Each primary spermatocyte divides into two haploid secondary spermatocytes. During this process, the two haploid daughter cells produced in primary spermatocyte divide into 4 haploid spermatids. The spermatids are the final stage of spermatogenesis. During this process, the spermatids differentiate into mature sperm cells, or spermatozoa. During spermiogenesis, the nucleus of the spermatid condenses to form the head of the spermatozoon, which contains the genetic material.
शंखनाभ्या कृतिर्योनिस्त्रिया वर्ता
Oogenesis is the process of gamete formation in the female reproductive system. It begins during fetal development, where primordial germ cells undergo mitosis and form oogonia. One oogonium differentiates into a primary oocyte, which rests in prophase 1 until puberty. During each menstrual cycle, a few primary oocytes are activated, completing meiosis 1 to form a secondary follicular phase. The growth and development of ovarian follicles characterize the follicular phase, the first stage of the menstrual cycle. Pituitary ovulation, the process in which luteal phase. The luteal phase is the last stage of menstruation, when fertilization and the implantation of an embryo do not take place. The uterine lining sheds throughout the menstrual cycle. When the sperm reaches the egg, it penetrates the outer layer, called the zona pellucida. Sperm has special enzymes in its head that allow it to dissolve and break down the zona pellucida, allowing the sperm to reach the surface of the egg. Once the sperm has reached the surface of the egg, it binds to special receptors on the egg's membrane, triggering a chemical reaction that causes them. After the sperm has penetrated the zona pellucida and bound to the egg's membrane, the two cells merge, known as fusion. The head of the sperm, which contains the genetic material, fuses with the egg's membrane enter the egg. The nuclei of the sperm and egg combine to form a single, diploid cell with a full set of genetic material. This new cell is called a zygote. After the sperm fertilizes the egg in the fallopian tube, zygote begins to divide rapidly into multiple cells, forming a ball of cells called a blastocyst. Blastocyst then moves down the fallopian tube towards the uterus. The endometrium thickens and becomes rich in blood vessels and glands, in preparation for the implantation of the blastocyst. This is because the blastocyst requires a rich supply of nutrients and oxygen to grow and develop. Blastocyst moves along the endometrial lining until it finds an appropriate area, and then begins to attach to the surface of the endometrium. The blastocyst attaches to the endometrium using finger-like projections on its surface called trophoblasts. The trophoblasts on the surface of the blastocyst then begin to invade deeper into the endometrium, eventually forming the placenta. At 3 weeks, the human embryo is in the early stages of development. The tiny cluster of cells has begun to form the neural tube, which at 4 weeks. At 8 weeks, the human embryo has developed distinct phase. Between weeks 29 to 33, the human fetus grows to. During weeks 34 to 38, the human fetus, nearing full term, measures around 17. Cervical dilation is a crucial stage during labor and delivery of a baby. The process of cervical dilation usually starts with the onset of regular and painful contraction. The rate of cervical dilation varies from woman to woman. When the cervix is complete, as the baby tucks in its chin, it starts to move out of the uterus and into the vagina, which stretches to accommodate. The flexible tissue of the birth canal are fully stretched. As the baby descends through the birth canal, the top of the head appears for the first time. This stage is called crowning, and the baby has usually turned again to face the mother's anus this time, so that the emerging head can negotiate. Strong contractions continue to push the baby out. The head emerges from the mother's body. The baby rotates again so that the shoulders are in position to slip out easily, one shoulder followed by the other. Once the baby's head and shoulder has fully emerged, the rest of the body will quickly follow, with the shoulders and torso slipping through the birth canal. The baby is usually born facing downward, with the back of their head facing the mother's front. The umbilical cord is usually clamped and cut at this point. Lactation is the maternal physiological response, secretion and yielding of milk by females after giving birth. The milk is
शंखनाभ्या कृतिर्योनिस्त्र्या वर्ता सा